Good evening. Welcome to the September 21st Elyria City Council meeting. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of reflective silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Baer, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sarah.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Baird.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Gillette.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Keys.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Brubaker, Mr. Firestein, and the administration for, organizing the city council chambers here. We welcome all those residents who are here. We're trying to practice the COVID-19 policies, procedures, and the compliance issues. So I would ask that you would follow those. But council is excited that we have residents in the audience again, and it's exciting. We're trying to get back to some type of normalcy here. So welcome. Public hearings.
There are none.
Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, City Council, and good evening, Elyria residents and visitors as well. A couple highlights I want to point out, and then leave it to the rest of my team to share some of the more detailed highlights. But this past weekend was a very busy weekend for the city. There was a lot of community groups, and I just want to give some of them a shout out. Lorain County Health and Dentistry did free COVID testing. Love Elyria, or Illyrians Helping Illyrians, gave away 100 free meals at a new restaurant, Southside Eats, on the corner of 16th and West Avenue. The Urban League hosted a census event at South Park, which I believe Councilwoman Simmons was there as well, at both of those last two events. Goodwill hosted a technology drive in partnership with the city, and so if you know of any seniors looking for computer classes or anyone looking for computer training and need a device, send them to ElyriaCares.com or get more info on the website. The organization Good Nights, I saw Councilman Sarah out there helping build beds and deliver beds out in Wilkes Villa. So 100 beds were delivered to families out in Wilkes Villa. So that was awesome as well. Tonight we will have a time to talk about Midway Mall. As I mentioned at the last meeting, there were some updates there, so we got some folks here, so I do want to make sure we get to that. But overall, I did want to share, I got a chance to see some of the parks folks here, and I know we have some park board members here. I just want to kind of reinforce it. One of the burning questions has been, what do we all want? I think we all want our parks to be filled with people having fun, building relationships, growing and learning, whether it's through sport or otherwise, about teamwork and perseverance. And if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you want, our parks to be filled, then we're in agreement and we can work together. But how we get there, I believe that's what I was elected to figure out. And working with this team to figure it out, just like we figured out how to keep our parks maintained over the summer, how to keep the Issue 6 projects moving forward, including having the splash pads operating. I was out there this past weekend. We saw geese out there playing soccer. So seeing groups out there playing and enjoying the parks and trying to find small ways to keep some normalcy in the city. Including, how we had to extend the Memorial Day parade. It was a little bit longer, but trying to find creative ways to create some normalcy. So we figured it out then, and we'll continue to figure it out. We've had to make hundreds of judgment calls throughout this pandemic since March, from closing City Hall to the public, to cutting overtime, freezing hiring, canceling programs, starting programs, and it's not been easy, but we've met the challenge. And I just want to encourage us that We'll continue to meet the challenges. I look forward to hearing the feedback from the community about what they're thinking and feeling. We're hoping to update the master plan and get feedback from the community of what they want to see in the future of the parks. But we have some serious challenges ahead of us. When we came in here, we recognized our number one private employer was packing their bags and leaving town, and that was going to leave a huge hole in our finances, and we would need to make some difficult decisions. And unfortunately, the pandemic has expedited a lot of those conversations. And so I look forward to working with council and working with the community to figure out how do we survive, how do we thrive during these challenging times. And I'm confident that if we work together, we can get it done. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Firestein.
To the chair, to members of council, I appreciate the chance to update. I had some communications with the ice hockey club and wanted to update council. Working with them, we believe that we will have the rink up and ready for them in high schools, as well as planning an open skate for the public. That's our goal. There's a lot of things that we're working to modify to make sure that we have people safe. That's the number one concern, but we are very confident that we can make that work. We've met with the employees of the Parks Department as well to get their feedback, their insight, and we're going to do a walkthrough a few more times to make sure that we have a good route to have people in a controlled process, making sure they can enjoy the facility, and then use that as our benchmark to see what else we can do with the other facilities. And as the mayor said, and as President Stewart said, get back to some type of normalcy that we can all kind of enjoy and get back to. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, so I know that there's a lot of residents here, and some may be speaking to the park, some on other issues over and through. I know that there was a parks meeting in regard to on Thursday, talking about a couple different things, but I guess one of the things, and I think there's probably more opportunity there, but to speak to it, but one of the things that was expressed by council was to have contract in form for leasing those buildings, and I think in agreements with the hockey club and the other groups who want to use those facilities. And I'm sure that's probably in the process, and I know you're just trying to relay that over and through. So I wanted to express that portion of it that needs to be kind of addressed with the law director's office and the administration and really the Parks Board to be a part of those discussions to make sure they're all on the same page, what you were talking about earlier. And I think that's what our goal is, to kind of make sure that there's an understanding with those groups and working with the city here. So any questions for Mr. Firestein in regards to that? No. All right. Finance Director Pileski.
Nothing to report this time, Mr. President.
Law Director Deary.
I have no report from my department, Mr. President, other than it is my understanding, as the Mayor alluded to, and also in speaking with you, Mr. President, that there may be an executive session later on this evening with respect to confidential information on an applicant for some economic assistance involving some real estate later on.
Okay. Very good. We'll address that when the time is there. Chief Whiteley, Elyria Police Department.
Just a quick note, and I'm sure you all saw it in the paper, but this past week we put out some awards from the officers for the different types of calls they handled. I hope everybody was able to read that article and just look at the sheer number of life-saving awards that were given out. It's an outstanding job, and they do this stuff, it seems like every day. But I wanted to give kudos. They do a great job, and they needed to get recognized, and we did it. Now, normally we would do that in council chambers, and we would invite everybody, but because of the restrictions this year, we couldn't do that.
Sure. Very good. Thank you, Chief. Please pass it out. Any comments, questions for the Chief? Thank you, Chief. Assistant Safety Service Director Calvert.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the members of council, I wanted to provide an update on where the status of the CARES Act Small Business Grant Program. To date, the Elyria Economic Development Committee has approved 13 applications. deferred 4 for further information, and we have 6 in process currently. So those will be reviewed and, by the Economic Development Committee at our next meeting. So in total, those 3 categories are total to $632,696 in requests for funding. And again, as we've discussed before, some of those expenses will not be eligible. So we will look and determine how much is fundable and communicate that with the applicants. We have not, we are still looking at the fine details of the grant agreements and some of the required documentation. So we have not notified any awardees yet of their status and look to do that very soon. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have notified everyone of their application status.
Okay.
I did just want to do a plug for the small businesses out there, because we can see through these applications how much some of them are struggling, and they are so innovative, so resilient, and so optimistic and committed to their dream of having a business, and just wanted to remind everybody of the challenges that they face. So please make sure to visit your local restaurants, hair salons, barbershops, everything, and patronize them as much as possible so we can show that support as a community.
So, Ms. Calvert, as far as the 13 applicants that have applied and they have been accepted, so they're still going through that process, or is the money been distributed at this particular time yet, or no?
So no money has been distributed just yet. So we are finalizing many of those required documents that we need to have in place in case we were to be audited by the federal government, this time next year, to make sure that we've crossed all our T's, dotted all our I's, and do not have to return any of that funding to the federal government. So those are the fine-tuning that the staff is doing to make sure before we announce any awards that we've got that all taken care of.
Okay. So when the time presents itself, when we're able to, have those individual companies or businesses come through, maybe we can have that information so that the council can see what was, what opportunities we're helping those businesses out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share that.
Any questions for Ms. Calvert? Thank you. Oh, Mr. Oswald.
Through Mr. Chair. Okay, so as soon as you finalize who gets it, how much time until cash in hand will they get their money?
So it's going to be dependent on how quickly they can turn around the grant application. They're going to be required to sign that document. And then within that, depending on where we are in the check cycle, it could be about a week.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Thank you. Way in the back side over there, Assistant Safety Service Director Brubaker.
Wait for the Uber to bring me back there from the Bob Euchre seat. So just wanted to bring you up to date to follow up on the director in regards to the ice rink and some protocols that we have in place. I'm not going to bore you and go through all of them, but I have met with Mr. Horwittle and several of the employees out there, along with Mr. Schneider, on how we're going to be bringing people in, how they're going to exit, what the rules and regulations will be, particularly with the open skate portion of it. What I found out is we get quite a few teenagers there on a Friday night. We're not going to be able to have that many. We're going to have to reduce that, so we're going to work with the administration as well as with the Lorain County Health Department to figure out what that number looks like. And then we will get that out there. We're probably going to open skate up on Friday evenings, probably start in November, I think is what they told us that they usually start that. And then we can expand from there as the need arises. But the employees and we went through the whole ice rink and discovered and decided what we could do, what we couldn't do. Also, I talked to Mr. Farrell today and with the mayor. There's some money in the vehicle purchase area, and Mr. Farrell and I will be sending out an email. The money was allocated, you guys approved it, but we need to make some changes to some vehicles that have come up in several different departments. So on the advice of the mayor, we're going to send that out via email with Mr. Farrell and I getting together to go over that. So if there's any questions, I can take those.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you. So when we allow these groups to go into the facilities, There will be a staff member on site during the entire time they're there.
At the ice rink, that is correct.
What about South Park?
At Horizon, we will have an employee or two at South Rec while they are there.
Thank you.
So, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Brubaker? All right. Thank you. Engineer Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to go over a few projects we have going on right now in the city. A number of them hopefully are wrapping up, and a few of them we're actually going to be starting here shortly, or have actually started today. The fountain project, we're probably about 2 weeks from completing that as far as our contractor goes. The brick is about 65% complete out there. The only other thing that would to finalize the project would be largely is the city will be finalizing the electrical out there. I believe we're still waiting for a couple fixtures, but all in all, the fountain should be complete. It's just the outer lighting along that outer wall. We're waiting for the fixtures. Chestnut Commons Drive, Connector Road, the concrete work out there, if you haven't seen, they've reached Broad Street, so a lot of the concrete is basically 95% of that concrete for the project is complete. Water main complete out there. Stormwater is roughly 90% complete. The contractor is working on putting up a temporary traffic light in the next few weeks, hopefully. And so when we do open up the road in hopefully a month or so or two, it will have a temporary light. So it won't be the permanent light, so it will not operate the same as the permanent light, but it will have a light is the plan. Asphalt work on other work to be completed out there as well as the asphalt work around Walmart and a few more traffic islands in the Walmart parking lot, as well as East Broad Street asphalt work. The East Avenue St. Mary Way improvement project, St. Mary's Way was paved last Monday. The only portion left on this project will be the restoration of East Avenue, as well as the sidewalks next to where the library is being built. All the underground is essentially done except for a couple services, water services, which there's not a lot on that road right now, so probably about 6 to 8 water services, one being very large, but it won't take the contractor long to complete those. Street resurfacing phase 2, all asphalt work is complete on that project. They're still adjusting castings. Phase 1 of the street resurfacing that was bid out, contractor actually started today, so they were out there milling streets today, so you will see them in other neighborhoods. I believe phase 1 has approximately 18 streets, so they will be in your neighborhood if they haven't been there yet. The West River Road water main sewer improvement project, barrels went up last week, so contractor was starting this week, so you will see the traffic control on that road has been changed to one way right now while they work on the water main. Once the water main portion gets through that from Lake Avenue to 5 Points, they will probably be dropping back to do the sewer work in that area because that road does get resurfaced in that area. That sewer work will end up closing the road to, similar to how we did the Whitman Boulevard, the deep dig project, because of those sewer being actually in the middle of the road, so there's no way to get by it for safety reasons. So you will have to enter in from one side or the other, and just so residents are aware, the road will be closed at that time to all, except for the ones who live in that area. Abbey Road South resurfacing should start this week if it hasn't started today. They were supposed to be out there milling today. I did not get an update on that one, but that is to start this week. That's a very small project, so only take a few weeks to complete. So, and that runs from Abbey Road South, Cleveland Street to the railroad tracks. So, and then the East Side Relief Sewer, which is the big dig up there on Poplar Street, all the sanitary sewer and storm sewers, the large diameter pipes are complete. So it's just now a matter of restoring the roads, which will take some time. I believe the contractor is starting to pour curbs next week on Bon Air, and that should go relatively quickly because it's going to be an asphalt road, so there won't be as much of time for concrete cure and things of that nature. So once they get the concrete poured for the curbs, you should see the asphalt right behind it. So, I guess with that, I open up to any questions for council.
Mr. Schneider, in regard to the interconnector road, which will be opening up, the communication with Walmart and those stores and some signage as far as directions and getting that all squared away, that's all part of, I'm sure, the plan, but when will those conversations be had? Because it is fast approaching with the holiday season.
Yes, signage is part of the is a part of the project, obviously. Unfortunately, some of it is going to be on the future mast arms. I don't know if they have the temporary signs made yet, but we'll look into it to make sure. We'll see what we can do as far as that goes. And part of the agreement with Walmart is that we have it open by November 1st as far as on Walmart property. Not necessarily all the way through, but the way this contractor has been going, I believe he'll have it all finished with respect to the East Broad Street area because of the traffic light poles.
Sure. Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Did you say that phase one, we're doing 18 streets, repaving the streets?
Approximately 18 streets, if my memory is correct, yes.
I just want to thank the residents. It's your 6 money at work. Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. What's the underground work going on over on the corner of, I believe it's then East Avenue and Depot Street? They look like they're digging right there at the corner. What, is that a problem, or what's going on?
That's part of the East Avenue St. Mary's Way project. Part of that project was to separate sanitary and storm sewers in that area to eliminate some CSOs that we have that were going to be required with our consent decree that will be coming up to remove. So we're just ahead of the game. It was part of, we're in the area doing other projects, let's take care of this, and it worked out perfect, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Schneider? Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I know you said the fountain is almost done. When can we anticipate that being finished and cleaned up and turned on?
So it should be only 2 weeks for the contractor who's on site right now to essentially complete his work. As long as the city forces can get the fixtures, we could open it up right away and get those installed, the lighting fixtures that go on the outer wall. That's the only thing I believe, material-wise, we're waiting for. But with that, I mean, we probably could open it up before then, limited it, if you wanted to, but it won't have the full effect as far as the lights are concerned.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sierra?
Through you, I hate to even ask this actually, but once we get the fountain running, what kind of temperatures can it run in, and how quickly do we have to winterize it?
Well, I mean, it's not meant to run all year long, so and when leaves start falling, they can also choke off the intake to it. So we're getting probably down to that time of year where if we want to fire it up, it wouldn't be on long.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sierra. Any other questions from Mr. Schneider? Okay, thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
I believe I've got everybody. That's over and through. Mayor Whitfield?
I was just going to share that two things. One is we're working on a dashboard for all the engineering projects, road projects that'll be on the website, so you'll be able to keep up with that. And then secondly, when it comes time to flip the switch on the fountain, we'll make sure to do some sort of, ribbon cutting, have folks out there celebrate that and, engage. My goal is to engage the former administration in that, since that was one of our projects, to get her involved as well. So
very good. Push them, John. We want a week, not 2 weeks. Thank you. All right. President's referrals and remonstrances. And number 1, utilities. Item number 2, utilities. Items 3 through 5, received and placed on file with copies to all council members. Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
Yes, we have one, Councilman Jesse, issue 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. 4 years ago, we, Elyria City Council, asked you to take a leap of faith and put your trust in our judgment by passing issue 6. It was a big ask. The city had not passed a new tax levy since 1992. We spent months analyzing the needs of the city and came up with a truly unique income tax levy, one that addressed multiple areas, primarily city streets, police, and parks. It was unanimously endorsed by all members of council, and each of us invested many hours in a grassroots campaign which was overwhelmingly supported by our voters. As a result of our collective work and passion, we, city council members, have maintained a strong sense of ownership, which carries on to this day. It is extremely important to know council controls how your tax dollars are allocated. And we have 4 years of investments which back up the promises we made to you, the citizens of Elyria. As of June 30th this year, we've invested over $7 million in residential street resurfacing and repair, almost 100 streets. Over $500 million to the Elyria Police Department, replacing most of our aging fleet of vehicles. Over $3 million to the Elyria Parks and Recreation Department, with improvements to all of our city parks. Over $5 million in departmental capital needs, an area not as obvious, but one that allows us to maintain the city services we sometimes take for granted, such as reliable and efficient equipment for snow plowing, collecting leaves, and essential building maintenance and repairs. In the coming weeks, you will be able to get more information on our website, renewissue6.com, or the Elyrians First Facebook page. Nationally, we find ourselves in a time of extreme mistrust of and anger toward our politicians. However, I believe most of us desperately want to put our trust in our leaders. The other unique thing about issue 6 is that all 11 of us on council have friends, neighbors, and colleagues who do trust us because of years of knowing us and working together. Collectively, that is a large contingent of the city. We are asking you to trust us again by supporting the issue 6 renewal on November 3rd. As a renewal, this will not raise taxes, and those on pensions, Social Security, disability, and unemployment will not pay a penny. We commit to continuing the resurfacing of residential streets, keeping our citizens and our police officers safe through the purchase of much-needed body cameras, and even more improvements to our city parks. Yes, our city parks. There's been a great deal of confusion, frustration, and outright anger over the status of the parks and its programming. We all understood the need to put our programs and facilities on hold in March. However, as our neighboring cities have begun to bring programming back under responsible safety protocols, Elyria is far behind. Announcements have been made about the Elyria Hockey Club at North Rec, Horizon Academy at South. The soccer program has been practicing at West. A great start for these deserving organizations. But there are two enormous problems which have not been addressed. The responsible opening of our facilities to you, the taxpayers, and a qualified and dedicated parks director to oversee the running of the entire program. We on council unanimously support both of these issues and see it as essential to happen immediately. As for returning our laid-off Parks Director, Carrie Reardon, here are the facts. Her expertise and qualifications are exemplary and recognized by council, her park staff, city employees, the Parks Board, and based on hundreds of conversations we have collectively had with you, the residents of Elyria. There are COVID funds through the CARES Act to cover her salary. How can opening our facilities to outside groups and the public be managed without her? The city cannot legally hire someone else from the outside until next May. To me, it's a total no-brainer to bring her back, so why has this not happened? I and others believe the mayor has allowed his personal opinions to hold our parks hostage. There is no other explanation.
We believe that under these conditions, it is impossible to manage our programs safely. Lastly, we are concerned about public backlash and the possible negative impact on the Issue 6 renewal. To be very clear, Issue 6 is sponsored by City Council. Council has many powers of oversight, but we do not have the authority on whom to hire. We have been trying to make this happen for several months, but now we need your help. I truly believe the only successful strategy is a strong public outcry to the administration demanding the reinstatement of Parks Director Carrie Reardon. Starting tonight, make your opinion known loudly and strongly by calling or writing the mayor or writing a letter to the editor of the Chronicle. Post on social media. Spread the word to your family, friends, colleagues, and neighbors. I'm afraid without you, our parks and programs will continue to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse.
That's all the petitions from the council members.
Mayor, I'll give you an opportunity if you want to comment in regards to that.
No, Councilman Jesse has my cell number. If he had a comment, he can always reach me. So I have no comment in response, but I definitely look forward to hearing the public, and I'll respond to them.
Okay. Well, I think that Mr. Jesse had kind of really touched on a lot of things, and I think it's very passionate with those community members that are here. And I know you shared your sentiments early on in your comments, but I think the need for her to come back in those discussions, because I think efficiently we're, as far as spreading really thin with the Safety Service Director's department, what seems to be kind of running that and doing that. But I think that's the responsibility of a Parks Director, and we would hope that maybe you would be open to hiring her back and bringing her back to its opportunities there. We'd appreciate you to consider that. Thank you. Petitions and responses for the lobby.
We have several. Mr. Larry Klipstein, subject sanitation and parks.
Mr. Klipstein, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Kind of change the title to that, though. Hi, Larry Klipstein, 959 Oakwood Drive, Elyria, Ohio. I feel right now Elyria is a frozen city, I call it. It's not moving forward, it's not moving backwards. I realize COVID-19 stopped a lot of things, but progress keeps going on. I mean, I work in the healthcare industry. I've been working every day since it started. I haven't missed one day, haven't stopped anything. We are at full capacity every day. We must not look at the big picture, though, until we can look at the small things that need fixed in Elyria. You can't ask big industry or business to come to a town when we can't take care of the small things. I mean, there's simple things around this city like potholes. There's a pothole as you cross 113 and 57 that I reported for 2 months. It's still there. There's a house at Penfield and Foster that's overgrown so much you can't even see the house anymore. Along 57, which is a corridor leading into the city between 80 and 90, the Midway Mall fence looks like a garden or something like that. You can barely see the mall in certain parts because of the overgrowth along there. Also, the abandoned properties at the mall, a lot of the restaurants, they're getting overgrown. The Sears store looks terrible because it's now getting overgrown too in the sides and the front. I feel the city, I know we don't own any of these things, but we need to have someone to take care of them that does own them. I do give Kevin Brubaker props because I did complain to him about TGI Fridays building. You could barely see the restaurants, and the very next day he had that taken care of. Also, I feel that we need guidance from administration because I feel the city doesn't have a plan of what the progress is going to be. I mean, I look at the paper, I listen to council. Whenever we elected you, you had this slogan, "We are the change." I hope the change is still coming. I mean, because we don't have a progress of any kind of plan. We hear little things. I mean, I commend you with the meal handouts, the bicycle rides, all this stuff, but that's not bringing any industry or one tax dollar into the city. Other cities around are progressing. They're out there getting more business in. They're opening all the facilities, like they said, the parks, the recs. People are trying to turn to a normal life. It feels like city of Elyria is still under a thumb, and we're still waiting to escape the COVID-19. There's a lot of things that the council can do and the mayor can do together. Right now is the biggest time in this city's history that you all have to work together and get things right. You can't let personal opinions. You got to do what's right for the city, regardless of if you like it or not. So I ask you to come out to the citizens, go to your neighborhoods. I don't know how many on council. You all have a ward. You have a council at large. How many of you come to your ward at least a couple times a month, go up and down every street and talk to the people you see outside, or see what that ward is up to, see what needs repaired, see what's going on in it? I'm not sure if any of you do, because a lot of us have to call or write to you to get things done. You should take it upon yourself as elected officials to go visit the people that you elect, they elected you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glipstein.
Mr. Frank Gustav, Parks and Rec.
Good evening, members. Oh, Jesus. I don't know how to work these masks these days. Good evening. Good to see you all again. Few names have changed in people, places, but I'm sure you all know who I was and who I am. My name is Frank Gustav. I live at 331 Augusta Drive in Elyria. I was the Parks and Recreation Director for 18 years, retiring in 2015. There's times when we all have jobs in a situation where you love your job and the things you do every day. I loved my job. I worked very hard with my staff to get things accomplished. As I look at the square when I go by daily or every other day, one of the biggest things that I accomplished and I enjoyed doing was the Civil War cannon. It was falling apart, and I got grants to make it aluminum, and it's still out there, but I can't see it due to the fact that the fountain is growing. Let me tell you too, the fountain will not start this year. So let's not even consider that. This is the time of year that we usually were shutting it down. We would have had the Apple Festival this past weekend. But anyways, I'm really, my heart aches for this city and the Parks and Recreation Department, the way that things are going. I don't know what the personal thing is between the administration and the former Parks and Recreation Director, but you know, leasing our buildings, these buildings are ours. They're the citizens of Elyria. We start leasing them out to people. Who am I going to call to take my kid's birthday party to? Who's going to be there? Like Councilman Mitchell asked, who's going to be there as far as our staff is concerned? Our hockey club, believe me, I work with hockey clubs at Rocky River and with our own club for many, many, many years. How are we going to do these open skates? How are we going to let people in? How are we going to hire the guards that will help the children to learn how to skate? One year we had a death on the ice, unfortunately, God bless her, a 10-year-old girl. Are we going to have people there to take care of this? I agree 100% with Councilman Jesse what's going on. I will not support issue 6, and I will campaign against it, no, until I see some type of plan of what's going on in our city. I mean, we had dedicated people that are trying to do things with our children that want to do it, and we're being blocked. There's no cooperation between our city council and our administration, and it's bad. It's bad. People see that, and it's just not right. We need to work together. You need to work together and get this straight. You can't walk into the Parks and Rec building to sign somebody up for soccer. You can't walk in to sign them up for flag football. What's going to happen next spring? Do we have a plan about what's going to happen next spring? This is a time of year where I used to upset my staff all the time because we would just start our winter programs, and I'd say, okay, gang, when do the pools open next year? Let's get that. We got to get that brochure done. You know, this is the things we do. We are award-winning from the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association years ago, but you can't say that now. We were one of the top Parks and Recreation departments in the state of Ohio. I was always judged against the man who started it, Chuck Hoagland. Always. I had to hit that high level all the time, and I made sure every one of my staff knew that. And we don't have the recreation people in where they should be. We don't have any recreation director, we don't have recreation supervisors, we don't have activity supervisors. You need somebody for that contact. You gotta have, God bless Kevin Brubaker. I worked with Kevin Brubaker. He's worked under me. We've carried caskets together at the cemetery department, and he's a hard worker and does a great job. But the last time I looked, Kevin Brubaker doesn't have an S on his chest. We need a Parks and Recreation director. We need that communication between you guys, the administration, and a Parks and Recreation director. Okay, I got that off my chest. You know, things are coming up that we would also be planning for. What about Holiday at Finwood? Now, we need a plan, and I agree with Larry. Larry used to come here when I was the Parks and Recreation director and set me straight on many things. Speaking of Geisa at West Park, there would be days we would go out to Geisa, we'd have a softball tournament going on, a state softball tournament, we'd have Little League West going, we'd have our soccer programs. You couldn't find a place to park. I worked with Geisa to get those fields going out there. We have all these organizations that want to come together, but you've got to have somebody there that handles those organizations, somebody that they can go to talk to get things done, to set the rink schedule right. I mean, you've got a multi-million-dollar facility that you have no plan for. Kevin, it's just, you got to have a plan. That ice is from 5 a.m. till 11 p.m. on Saturday night. Who's cutting the ice? Who's going to drive that Zamboni? Somebody doesn't have the training on that, going to run it through a wall? That thing's a $100,000 machine. You're going to just put anybody on it? It's not going to work that way. It's not going to work that way. So over my 18 years and what I helped accomplish and what my staff, it just breaks my heart to see what's going on. And we need places for our kids to go. And I understand that they're all good organizations, but sometimes all kids don't fit in the same mold. You know, they need a place to go where, okay, son, I'm going to go sign you up for soccer. You're going to be on somebody's team. Mr. Gustaf's going to call you. You're going to have practice. You know, the rec centers, who's going to maintain the rec centers? We're putting too much pressure on the maintenance guys to do programming that our recreation supervisors and Parks and Recreation directors should be going. We are at a crucial time right now. And I know it's tough with this COVID, and I know things had to be changed. And I know you had to make some cuts, but believe me, I know how to look at a budget. And I asked the auditor department for the budget, and what I could see, you could certainly hire somebody out of other funds to get these jobs done, whether it be the Finwood special, whether it be special. There's so many funds out there that a Parks and Rec director you can pay from. It used to be, I remember when we did the audit with the former mayor, and they came to my department, the guy turned at me and said, I don't know how you get things done. He goes, I've never seen a city with a budget like you get things done per capita of children. It was like $3 per kid. And he goes, I said, it's well-oiled machine, and walked out of the meeting. But those are the type things that got to get done. You have 3 Parks and Recreation board members here, people who care about what's going on. And there's so much divide and everything I see. I never thought I'd come back to this podium to be upset with what's going on in the city I love. And even our consideration of putting a sign in our yard that doesn't say vote yes for issue 6, it says for sale. And that hurts me tremendously. My wife and I built a home in this town when I became director because I felt I should be living in this town. And I moved here, and I love this town, and to watch it go down the tubes, I'm not going to stand by idly and get it done. So if something doesn't get done, and we don't see some type of plan between cooperation with the Parks and Rec Board, with City Council administration, I have no other thing to do but to campaign for no. You're getting all these COVID funds. I'm not seeing what's done. You're paying overtime for guys on COVID funds what they could do any other times. I know what's going on, and I've seen it. So God bless you all. Please, please work together to get this done right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gustav, for your service. and your commitment to the city and your dedication and your work ethic. It's been passed on to, you've been a great mentor to a lot of individuals.
I have a letter from Lisa Bowman, 4054 Biggs Road, LaGrange, Ohio. I've worked for the Elyria Parks and Recreation Department for 38 years. I retired as the Parks and Recreation Director in 2017. I want to praise the Elyria Parks and Recreation Board and the Elyria City Council for having the foresight to see that the Parks and Recreation Department needs a qualified director in Carrie Reardon to return to her position. Mr. Ted Pulaski, Finance Director, stated at the Finance meeting on 9/14 that there was funding available for her to return. To open facilities without proper staff training and leadership is negligent. With no recreation staff, there will be no quality programming. Facilities were built by taxpayers for the citizens of Elyria, not private groups exclusively. Mayor Whitfield, I implore you to listen to the members of council and the Parks and Recreation Board who have been in the community service for many years and rehire Carrie Reardon. The future of the department that has such a rich history in Elyria and the state of Ohio is teetering on the brink of expulsion. Do not let this be your legacy. Lisa Bowman. And we have Marty Martinez, 358 Beebe Avenue. I've been a resident of Elyria for 45 years. I love the city and the people. I wish I could be at today's meeting. My wife and I have decided to stay quarantined. I have been involved in the city for many years. Since we have a new mayor, staff, and some new council people, I thought I would mention some of my involvement with the community. Economic Development Plan, the Bike Advisory Committee, Bicentennial Committee, election issues, and Block Watch. I hope the city continues to improve the parks. I believe the city should bring back the park manager to manage the parks master plan and improvements. By bringing back the park manager, it would be a good selling point for issue 6 since the parks are closed to the community. We have Samantha Benke, 211 Fulton Road. Samantha?
If you please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Samantha Banky. I live in 211 Fullerton Road, off Golf. I'm here to talk about the flooding issue me and my neighbors have been experiencing this summer. Me and my husband have lived there for 3 years. The first 2, we haven't had any water and not even an inch come in our basement. This year we've had 4 floods. I know this doesn't seem as extreme as the last couple, but it's an issue for us. Like, we're trying to do everything we can. It's coming up through the drains. It's not through the walls. Our whole front yard it's gathering in the streets, in the sidewalks. We had a neighbor videotaping her daughter canoeing down our sidewalk. And we just don't know, we're trying everything, sub pumps, we're trying to backflow, but, when it has nowhere to go, what are you gonna do? We had our drains scoped. They said that our pipes that we're responsible for look great, but the cities are collapsed in areas by our house, and there's just no way it's gonna go anywhere. So I just thought I'd bring it up today, and I've, talked to other people in my neighborhood. They have very similar issues. We're all trying our best to try to do what we can do, but, I feel like it's not gonna ever be resolved with how much water gathers every storm. It gets worse every time it rains. I know the last storm was really bad, I get that, but, from no water to now, 4 or 5 inches in our basement is just, it blows my mind, so.
Well, we thank you for coming up.
Okay.
Engineer Schneider can maybe meet with you just to make sure we have your name and address and phone number just to make sure, and then we
Yep,
can address
I have an
those.
email, I'm sending all my stuff to, I got.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
thank
We
you.
have them up here just in
Okay,
case.
very good.
Give them to Ms.
Thank you.
April West, 996, I think it's Reeve Road.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is April West. I live at 996 Reeve Road in Elyria. I'm here to talk about the flooding. Also, I live in the street down from her. I've been there since 2016, and like she said, it's never been this bad. And it used to be just a little puddle, and now it goes all the way down the road. It's like a river, like a lake in the front. And it took 4 of us to get the water out of our basement. So.
Okay. Well, again, I believe the clerk's office has your address and name and number and everything like that. The engineer's office will get a hold of you, and they'll try to work with you to come up with some type of solution for you. We appreciate you coming up. Mr. Clerk, is there any more? Mr. Clerk?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there any more?
Yes. Karen Sims, 203 Fulton.
Ooh, I guess I'm the old resident here because I've lived at 203 Fullerton Road for 36 years. My name is Karen Sims. First of all, let me just be thankful I'm not sitting in the mayor's chair. Whew. But thank you to all of you concerned about the Parks Department, but that's not why I'm here. I am also here because of all the flooding. First of all, let me say I have lived at this home for 36 years. Elyria has served me well. Sanitation department does a great job. Garbage pickups, street paving is great. Snow clearing is great. Parks department has been great until now, I guess. Flooding has not been an issue until recently. And a couple of years ago, the problem started. My crawl space was flooded over and over. I had a company come out and replaced all the drain tile all around my house. They even had to go under my cement driveway. I had to have the driveway repaired after that. I've spent well over $10,000. Had a new sump pump put in with a backup battery-operated sump pump. I have a furnace in the crawl space, and I just can't risk losing that. I don't want my property to deteriorate from water damage, and I can't keep up with the expense of replacing furnaces and the whole bit. It's really getting out of hand. So my feeling is I have done everything I know to do. I've spent a ton of money. Like I say, up until a couple of years ago, a few years ago, this wasn't even an issue. Now the yard is flooded. I'm still getting water even after all the money I have put into the property. So I feel that I am trying like the devil to keep up with my property, be proud of it, be proud of Elyria, and now I'm turning to you. What more can we do, and what can the city do? After all these years, I've been really let down, and I know the Parks Department people feel the same way. So, ball's in your court now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sims.
Terry Hales, 991 Valley Boulevard.
My name is Terry Hales. I lived at 991 Valley Boulevard over 34 years. In the last 15, we've had more flooding than I've ever seen. My predecessor put in clay tile. I have 155 foot of frontage. They put in clay tile. I took out a few pieces a couple years ago because a semi got stuck there. And what a 6-inch clay tile looks like, I had 2 inches of availability for water. The clay and the dirt is there, so the water has nowhere to go. On one side of Dowd, there is a drain, but it is so backed up, I don't know about that side, but I'm on Valley and Dowd. I'm on the corner. And I have 3 outdoor sump pumps currently that I have to pump to the sidewalk. So now in the winter, there's nothing but ice. But I keep it out of my basement. I got to clean mold up about every year. One person on Dowd, a few years back, the toilet blew out of the basement. He had a toilet in the basement, and the water was so bad it blew the toilet off its, they only have small bolts, but I mean, that's how bad it's getting. You can build a new big 50, 74-inch sewer going to the east side, but go right past Spring Valley. We're stuck, and we've been that way. The city won't clean the clay tile. So we either have to dig a ditch, which I am considering, and next year the garbage truck's gonna be in my ditch. Because they've been in my ditch, or in my yard, 2 or 3 times every year. They miss the curve. There's a diamond right on the corner of Valley and Dowd. And they come around the one corner on my side, and if it's too soft, there's a garbage truck. So all my tile is busted. So there's a lot of other people that if they've allowed people to park on the curb, plus we got trees growing right down the street in the curbside, which you know what that does. It blocks the drainage. So we got nothing. And I run 3 sump pumps. That's the only thing I can do to keep my basement dry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hales.
Nancy Captain, 205 Fulton.
Yes, please name and address for the record.
I'm Nancy Captain, 205 Fullerton Road. Also complaining about the flooding on Fullerton, and like he said, Dowd and Reeve. I had over 1 foot of water the last time it rained. It damaged my furnace. I've had to get new hot water heater. I've had to get furnace repairs numerous times. I mean, the city guys came to the house and they said the pipe was overcharged, which means it was already full with water, so there was nowhere for the water to go. And I have 2 sump pumps, but if there's nowhere for the water to go, the sump pumps are running, but they're not doing anything because the pipe's filled. So, I mean, something has to be done. I mean, the streets are flooded, the sidewalks flooded, our yards are flooded. All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming up, Miss.
Cynthia Husted, 205 Dowd.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cynthia Husted. I live at 205 Dowd Road. I'm basically here to pile on with the neighbors about the water. I did bring pictures if anybody wants to see how much rain we get, and this is starting in May. I know we got an extraordinary amount on Labor Day, but the flooding has gotten progressively worse. I've lived there 6 years, and this is from May until Labor Day, the pictures. It's just, there's nowhere for the water to go. So if you stand in my yard, you can look up, it comes from Hilliard into my yard and then up across my ditch and is level with the ditch. So we need help. We need something that my dog does the backstroke because it's so deep back there. But we need some kind of resolution. Does anybody want these? Thank you.
That's all the petitions from the lobby? Mayor Whitfield?
So through you, Chair. So in terms of the flooding, I want the Chief Engineer, John, to respond to that, but I definitely want to let you know we hear that concern loud and clear. There is some infrastructure pieces I want John to speak to that this is one of the causes for this. Last night I was up till 12:30 a.m. dealing with my first backflow issue, and it was not a happy experience. And so I know what you're dealing with, and it's a part of a larger infrastructure conversation we're having as a city that we need to. We have a 200-year infrastructure that we have to improve, and but I'll let the engineer speak to kind of why we're seeing these levels of flooding outside of the fact we're just having historic rains, period, around the state and country, but from an infrastructure standpoint.
Mr. Schneider?
Thank you, Mr. President. As the mayor said, you know, when you design storm sewers, one, you don't design for the type of storms that we've had lately. You really just can't do that. In these older parts of the city where they've actually annexed into the city, they didn't have storm sewers, which is amazing, this whole Spring Valley area, the lack of drainage, and the river is so close, and there's drainage ditches that are really close. So unfortunately, you have to get the water there somehow, though. And a lot of the ditches that were in that area were closed off, and we have really no access to the ditches. 6 inches is well undersized in what you need in an area. Minimum we put into the ground nowadays is 12 inches. This is, as I said, an area that it's severely lacking in storm drainage. We did have a meeting with the residents a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'm from the top of my mind. And majority of the people over there, they want storm sewers. And I agree, there's nothing more I want to do and take care of this problem. The issue we have, though, will be funding. There is no funding source out there to pay for this. We have stormwater funds that we collect, but that's not even close to what you need for this area. And then you compile that area with, they don't have curbs, they don't have sidewalks, which is not a big deal, don't get me wrong, but those are the type of things that this area currently lacks a lot of. But there's nothing more that I would rather do than take care of the stormwater issue. And it's very attainable because the river is right there. We have a large storm sewer on Berkeley that we could tap into, and as well as ditches in the area that are we might need to get some easements and things of that nature, but it's very doable. And we just need guidance from council on how you want us to pay for it.
Yep. And through you, Chair, I know we were in a meeting earlier talking about the infrastructure and stormwater, the work that needs to go on in the city. And part of what we need our community's help is pushing our state reps, our folks at the state, the governor's office, our state legislators, our federal legislators, to provide funding for us to be able to do these. And I think, again, as we look at the priorities for the city, these are the things that's on my radar in terms of how do we, leverage our resources to go after these projects that may not be cute, but at the end of the day, it's going to save you all the thousands of dollars to put into your household to fix things, and time to be here at City Council, Sharon, as well. So we're on it, and we just need to kind of work together to kind of push to get some resources here to pay for them.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Okay. Reports us. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you, and I apologize for being out of order, but I think it's important to mention that Community Development Block Grant money is coming up, and the Parks and Recreation Department always has money for their funding, for their seniors and for the youth. And if nobody is in that role that knows about that funding and what they need and what they should be doing, then we're missing out on federal tax dollars that we should be using to help our parks. So that's another reason why we need a parks director, because that money is there, but if we can't go get it, We don't get it. Thank you, and I apologize again.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Ms. Keys?
I kind of would like to piggyback on to what Councilman Jesse and Donna just said, sorry. Anyway, currently our safety service directors are being asked to take on yet another role in overseeing and managing our Parks and Rec program. I, for one, can say that there are enough issues in my ward alone to keep one of them busy full-time. They do an amazing job, but I think that this is asking a lot of them to oversee these programs. One of the things I learned in my 30-plus years as a small business owner is that you have to constantly adjust your sails with the changing winds. In other words, be able to look at changing circumstances and proceed accordingly. There's no place in leadership for petty differences. In my experience, the sign of a great leader is someone who can reflect on a situation, change their thinking, and take action. If there is doubt, set aside pride and find the answers among those with greater experience. I, along with my colleagues and many constituents, am completely committed to bringing back Carrie Reardon to oversee our Parks and Rec. Thank you very much. Now let's get this done.
Thank you, Ms. Keys. Mr. Tolet?
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. I will address this directly with the mayor. In my personal situation with my family, they started working at the Parks Department the year of the flood, 69. Is that correct, Mr. Gustav? My dad hired you? My sisters work there. It's been a family history with myself also. But one of the things that was interesting when I showed up for the rally for the hockey team, they had a complete action plan for COVID, and they were way ahead of the game. And my concern again is that all the leagues, all the seniors programs, all the little kids programs need that same type action plan. And to have that in an appropriate way requires a director that it's specific to that function, if that makes sense, because hockey will be different than soccer, coming from the parking lot in, which will be different than a seniors program. So I would ask you, please consider hiring back Ms. Reardon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolet. Mr. Oswald?
Well, I'm going to talk about the water issue because I'm the fourth ward councilman, and I'm the one that have been over there watching these people cry, trying to pump water out of their basements. It's real bad. When I was campaigning, I was walking over in that area, and I couldn't get to some of the houses because the water was overflowing in the sidewalks just from regular rains. And I says, well, do you guys always live like, oh yeah, it's always been like this. We know that it's been bad. Every year they say, we got to do something about it. The next year comes by. We need to do something about it. Right now, we have to do it. That's just all we got. We got too many people. They're losing a lot of money. They're trying to stay afloat. And we just got to pass something through council. And we know what it's going to cost money. But people, they can't get insurance. I know I ranted and raved about this the last council meeting, but we need to start doing it, and I will have more conversations with the engineer and then hopefully the mayor, and we can do something. I think it's really bad, that whole area, and too many people are just saddened by all this, and they don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. So there's been a lot of discussion. I know we've kind of a little bit out of order here a lot with our Robert's rules, but I think that's okay. That's okay though, because I think it's important. You know, we have a lot of passionate people here for our parks. We have a lot of passionate people here for our residents who are suffering with water damage. I think this is all important. everything is important to everybody over here in our community. And we need to take the leadership role, like many of these residents have come up here and work together with the administration with a common goal. And, that starts tonight. We're making those efforts to make these decisions and leadership role. And people are passionate. I know we're not discounting those individuals who have flooding issues, but it seems the parks are really at the forefront of moving forward. So again, with all those discussions tonight, I'd hope that the mayor would really heed the advice of those residents who are here in attendance and listening and watching online, and that we can bring Ms. Reardon back in regard to that. So, okay. Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent inactive utility accounts and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said accounts to the Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that you pass this resolution on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called to suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2020-22. There are no more resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Finance Director to transfer funds to the specified accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
I ask this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-117. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for and accept, if offered, the Drinking Water Assistance Fund Program from the Ohio EPA for the year 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is any discussion?
Question.
Question been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-118. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Audio Visual Innovations, Inc. for audio and video recording equipment, software licensing, and support for the Elyria Municipal Court and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-119. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Intelligent Video Solutions for video recording equipment, software licensing, and support for the Elyria Municipal Court and directing an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-120. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-38, known as the 2020 Permanent Appropriation Ordinance, to change funds in various accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question has been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-121. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance amending ordinance 2016-6, known as the salary ordinance, to increase the wages of local number 277, Ohio Council 8 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-122. Sponsored by Finance, ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement between the City of Elyria and Local 277, Ohio Council 8 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any further discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-123. Sponsored by Finance, ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into insurance contracts with Travelers Property Casualty Company of America, Travelers Indemnity Company of America, and Charter Oak Fire Insurance Company through Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc., for the City of Elyria's general liability, property, auto liability, law enforcement liability, public officials management liability, employment practices liability, and umbrella excess liability insurance, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-124. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an insurance contract with XL Insurance America, Inc., through Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc., for the City of Elyria's equipment breakdown insurance, and declare emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-125. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an insurance contract with BCS Insurance Company through Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc., for the City of Elyria's cyber liability insurance, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-126. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an insurance contract with Travelers Casualty and Surety Company of America through Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. for the city of Elyria's crime insurance and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-127. Sponsored by Finance, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an insurance contract with Navigator Specialty Insurance Company through Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. for the city of Elyria contractors pollution liability insurance and declare emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any discussion? Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-128. Sponsored by Utilities, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to accept the transfer of ownership of a water main to the city of Elyria and to fund requested upgrades.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sarah. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-129. Sponsored by Utilities, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the Lake Avenue Sanitary Sewer Extension Project and declare emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sarah. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-130. Sponsored by Utilities, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the East Park Playground Equipment Project.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sears. Any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-131. Sponsored by Utilities, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for and accept, if offered, the 2020 Community Incentive Grant sponsored by Lorraine County Solid Waste Management District and declared an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sears. Any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-132. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance renumbering and codifying section 937.417, policy for replacement costs of service lines in areas where the city is replacing water mains and certifying costs to the county auditor, codified ordinances of the city of Elyria.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sear. Any discussion?
Question.
Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2020-133. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There's one, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to Cahovian Homes for a residential plan unit development at real property located on Southwood Drive and Indian Hollow Road, Elyria, Ohio.
I declare this ordinance have its second reading. Public hearing is scheduled for Monday, October the 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
That's all second readings.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development, request the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Engineer, Building Inspector on 9/28, streamed live at 6 p.m., all referred items. Yeah. Finance, request the Mayor, Finance Director, Law Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer to be announced the date, all referred items in the council chambers. Utility, Safety, and Environment, request the Safety Service Director, Law Director, and Engineer on 9/30, streamed live at 6 p.m., all referred items. And Strategic Planning, request the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, Law Director on 10/5, streamed live immediately following regular council meeting, all referred items. That's all committee calls.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And there was some discussion in regards to the hockey club and some of those contracts, as well as the Horizon Schools. I think if there's opportunities, if we need to have a special meeting to have those contracts put in place, I know timelines are kind of critical. I just kind of want to have that open for council members to consider that, if need be, to have a special meeting to kind of make sure we can get these things finalized. So, but we want to make sure that everything's in place and that the law director and the administration are working well together with the Parks Board for that. Just want to kind of have that out there, that if there's opportunities that we'd like to have a special meeting. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
Mr. President, I make a motion to amend ordinance 2020-77 to add to section 1, general fund 1.40 mil to 1.0 mil, and sinking fund and bond 2.20 mil to 2.60 mil.
Motion by Mr. Jesse.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Discussion. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's to add district number 70. When I presented this to the Finance Committee, I didn't realize that I had to include District 70. That was brought to my attention by the Lorraine County Budget Commission. It's a small district, doesn't bring in much millage, but in order for this to be accurate, we need to include District 70 with the numbers that Mr. Jesse just mentioned.
Very good. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Questions have been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Any other miscellaneous and unfinished business?
Hearing none.
Well, we have to go into executive
Oh, you got
session.
executive session.
So I need a motion to go into executive session for confidential business information
So moved.
of an applicant for economic development assistance. Moved by Ms. Mitchell.
Second.
Second by Mr. Baird. Roll call.
And,
Oh.
sorry to interrupt, but, Mr. President, it's my understanding that there will be no action taken. Obviously, we'll come out of executive session to adjourn, but if any members of the audience don't wish to wait that out, I just wanted to point that out. Obviously, that's subject to what council wants to do, but that's my understanding.
Thank you, Law Director.
Mr. Kelly?
Roll call.
Mr. Sierra?
Aye.
Mr. Oswald?
Aye.
Mr. Baird?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons?
Aye.
Mrs. Davis?
Aye.
Mrs. Keys?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
All ayes.
At this particular time, I'd ask that the general public, we're going to go into executive session to speak, so if you could please see yourself out into the lobby. If you choose to leave, thank you for coming. See you next time.